Welcome to Wealth Matters Podcast. I am going to talk to Mr. Jeff McKee today. Jeff has been working in the high-tech field for 30 years. 5 years ago, he started investing in single family, then moved 4 years ago into passive, then active investing in multifamily apartment syndications. So Jeff is now general or a limited partner on 15 class B2C multifamily apartment communities, representing over 4,000 apartment units or doors across 10 different cities or MSAs. Wow, that's crazy. So, and he's also Amazon #1 best-selling author like me. For bringing and the book is called Bringing Value, Solving Problems, and Leaving a Legacy, where Jeff describes his scaling from single to multifamily investing. I would have to check it out as well. I think electronic copy is available on his website, McKeeCapitalGroup.com. So welcome, Jeff.
Yes, thanks, Alpesh. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So the first question we always ask every guest, tell us something interesting or funny about yourself.
Yeah. I met my wife in high school, so we were high school sweethearts.
Wow.
We met 40 years ago. Been married 33 years, 3 kids, 31, 29, 26. So yeah, still married to my high school sweetheart.
That's amazing. What was your very first real estate investment?
It was this duplex in Waco, Texas. We live in Austin, Texas, so it's about an hour and a half away. And my wife and I and one of our sons graduated from Baylor University. A good buddy of mine's a president of a bank. His friend is a commercial broker who had some residential, and he was unloading some of his small residential. So we bought a duplex from him, and we've had that, for 5 years, and actually we're getting a contract on it today to sell it. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride, with the duplex. That was our taking action moment, joining a single family mentoring group and then taking action. So it was a step in the right direction away from just your own personal single family residence. This was actually an investment property, creating an LLC, just learning the ropes.
No, that's great. Yeah. And I tell everyone that owning your primary residence, it's not an investment. And if you have read Rich Dad Poor Dad or Cash Flow Quadrant, of course, Robert Kiyosaki calls it as a liability. Yeah. I don't call it a liability because we need a roof to live, right? Yeah. So, and we want to call it our own house, but that is not an investment. You are putting money into it. Even if you have paid it off, you still have taxes, you still have insurance, and you are also got to maintain it, right? Yeah. So that is, it's not an investment. And if you think, oh yeah, my house value has doubled, yeah, you can sell it, but where are you going to go?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So that's a great first step. How did that investment work out for you?
Yeah, so it also, has been a challenge to operate, even though it's only 2 doors, right? And we have third-party property management. It's just that, when you have one door empty, a vacancy, that's 50% occupied.
Yes.
And so that was the challenge. And that we just found it was hard to scale in that kind of a model.
Yes.
Those are recourse loans. It's in our name before we created the LLC, and the bank wants to see it in your name because that LLC has no history. Right. And so it was just a challenge, but it was great because when the tenants are paying down, we had a good principal and interest, so we would have the tenants pay off $6,000 a year, just because of the regular payments they would make, and we'd get a little bit of cash flow along the way. So it was interesting, but we've had other issues. Like there was a water main leak for a couple months that was slowly leaking out. Took them a long time. $400 water bill one month, $300. And it's like, okay, well, this may not be the most profitable. And so there's just minor repairs along the way, a new refrigerator and all that kind of good stuff. And so it was just a challenge. We felt we could take that money and invest it in other assets, so say multifamily, to have a better return.
No, that makes sense. And I think I would say the first step you took is amazing. On top of that, even though everyone kept saying that Austin is the hottest market, or Dallas, you did not choose that market, even though you live there. You decided to go out of your comfort zone. And that's what teaches you a lot more, right? Because when you go out and invest, because when I had my residential property here in Bay Area, I was managing myself, because when it's close by for you. But when I sold that, I realized that I don't want to keep anything in California. Just I don't want to rely on that appreciation. And I started investing out of state. I did not have choice but hire property management. So you're already working through that mindset that you got to build a team, right? You you can't rely, you can't be there all the time. So I'm glad that you took that first step and invested like an hour or two away, and you already had to hire a property management company. So
Right.
you know how to work with them, as well as you know how important they are for your investment. You do multifamily or single family, it doesn't matter. Even I have mobile home parks, self-storage, exact same thing. You still got to rely on them.
Yeah, yeah. And then we joined this mentoring group to kind of learn the ropes, learn from other people, go through a training. And then we felt more comfortable, more confident to go execute on this strategy. And then the other thing was letting people know that you're in that business. I am looking for a duplex. I am looking for a home, an apartment complex. You let people know you're in the game. And then also the personal relationships, going to the market that you're interested in, evaluating it. In this case, I went to my buddy who introduced me to his friend, the broker, and we rode around town looking at some of his properties. We ended up buying one. So then, and so you go to the market, you're in the game, you let people know, and you're developing that network of professionals, the banker, the real estate agent, the property manager, all those kinds of things. And so that was really beneficial.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's talk about, you come from high tech world. I come from IT world. We spoke about that you worked at Microsoft, and of course I live in Bay Area, so pretty connected with IT side. Why did you choose real estate?
Yeah. Well, so, I realized after, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I
Of
waited
course.
until I was 50 to start realizing I needed to have these horizontal lines of passive income, to have, more of a retirement instead of just socking away the 401k and maxing out. And so then we started researching real estate. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad, cash flow quadrant. And I realized I was on the employee side. I want to be on the investor side and move around the quadrant to lower the tax rate. And then, we would hire tax professionals to help us strategize around that and asset protection. And so it was a number of things, but it was basically the desire to drive more passive income on these real estate assets, in addition to keeping working at the W-2.
So what does your portfolio look like? Are you majority real estate? Do you also have stocks? Do you also invest in startups coming from high tech world, or what does it look like?
Yeah, so we moved about 50% of our wealth from Wall Street to Main Street over the last 4 years. So we still have, like an old 401k. I've got some from other 401ks. I've moved into solo 401ks and
Yeah,
I've
we just
invested
spoke
that
about
way.
that.
So I've
That's
invested
amazing.
in a hard money fund. I've invested, a little bit in crypto, but then I've invested in apartment communities that we don't have anything to do with as a limited partner investor. I've invested those monies that way. And then we have after tax money and all that we've been investing straight away into multifamily apartments as a limited partner in a bunch of different deals. So, I would say, today that our real estate is 75%, of our net worth, and the stock market less than 25%.
That's amazing. So can you share your journey of moving from high wage W-2 to real estate investor?
Yeah, yeah. And so, I started diversifying my thought process into strategizing, reading books and, listening to podcasts and then we joined the mastermind. That was the other thing, is we felt as though if we put money out there, we would have a desire to go at least earn that back and break even. And so
Yes.
that was the stepping stone. And then we kept doing more and more mentoring groups, and masterminds. Some of them are free, some of them are paid, but
Yes.
you're surrounding yourself by like-minded people, and then you could start doing deals, with those people. And so I just felt that this was a progression to get into this real estate. And so the second thing we did is we did a fix and flip. So based upon the connections we made in this single family group, we did the duplex buy and hold. That was one strategy. And we said, hey, let's try and do wholesaling. That didn't work out. So we did a flip with a partner, and she knew what she was doing to manage the flip, and she was a real estate agent. We were the money partner. So we brought the money, we did hard money, we did some of our own money, and then we just split the profit 50-50. And so, we bought it for 250, we rehabbed it for 70. So we were in for 320, sold it for 420. And then we had a net profit before taxes of 40. She got 20, our LLC got 20. And then that was the same amount that we had paid to join the single family group. So right there, we broke even,
Nice.
but it was kind of taking action, on that. And then we realized that counted as top line income. It wasn't an
Yeah,
investment,
that's
right? It's a
fiction.
transaction.
You are
Yeah.
right. It's a
Yeah.
transactional business. The day you stop the transaction, you are done. You
Yeah.
want that monthly cash flow, monthly
Yeah.
income.
Right. And there was no depreciation with that thing.
Right.
It's like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. So we did the one buy and hold, one fix and flip. Then we started doing the multifamily. Originally, we joined a group again as limited partner investors. We did 5 deals as LPs. Then later, we wanted to scale up faster and become more active. We joined another group that is just all GPs. And then we've done 10 deals as co-GPs in the last 18 months with that new group.
That's amazing. So one thing I would take away a couple of things actually. One is that you took action. I can tell that you were taking constantly action. Doesn't matter because I have done exactly same as you, where I've tried out single family. I also tried to do fix and flip, but I was just lucky that I liked that property. I didn't flip it. I still have it. I rented it out because I thought when I spoke with my CPA, he said, no, 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 no. If you sell it, you're going to pay tax. So I still have that property. And I also tried wholesaling and a lot of other stuff. And it's not for me. I realized that. But you are taking action. So that's great. The second takeaway is that get into a paid membership. And this is one of the biggest mistake all of us make when we are starting out, right? That you want to consume as much free content as possible. That free content is good for knowledge. It's good for like theoretical tests. It's not good for practical. Right?
Yeah.
If you want to be a doctor, you can't just read book, you got to operate. Right? So same way as in investor world, you can't call yourself an investor till you start investing, right? So and I have seen this so many times. So I did exactly same as you. I didn't join mentoring club, but I was all around the country paying for tons of conferences, right? Flying there, meeting a lot of people, building that connection. And then I would have a lot of material. And my friends will ask me, oh, can you share that material? I'll share those things with them. And I ask them after 3 months, 6 months, did you listen to the video audio? Did you watch the video or did you read the book? No, yeah, we'll do it when we get time. So free means you don't care about it.
Yeah.
When you have your own capital into it, you got to take an action, right? So
Yeah.
that's a couple of takeaways. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, yeah. And then I would also call it's an investment in your future, an
Yes.
investment in yourself. It's not an expense. Like some people would look at, oh, to join that group was 10K, that group was 20, that was 35, that was 50. Some people say, wow, you spent a lot. That's an expense line item. But I look at these things as an investment, an
Yes.
investment in the future, investment in me, investment in my family. And so
Yes.
that's how I kind of view these paid mentorships or like going to events like that. Yeah, sure, there's a fee and transportation costs and opportunity time, but at the same time it's an investment. You're starting to meet
Yes.
and be around those like-minded people.
Yep. No, that's awesome. And you spoke about reducing taxes. So how are you able to reduce your taxes by investing in real estate?
Yeah. So initially, we basically did the cost segregation, bonus depreciation
Yes.
to offset long-term capital gains of other assets. That can only take you so far, especially if you're new. You don't have that many assets that you're
Nope.
going full cycle on. So
Exactly.
then we hired a company that's one of Tom Wheelwright's company, the CPA guy.
Provision.
Yeah,
Provision.
Provision. So we hired
Yeah,
Provision.
I
Yeah,
I took his tax courses four or
yeah.
5 years ago. That's how I learned all
Yeah,
that.
exactly. So we hired them purely for tax planning and strategy. They don't prepare our returns. They don't do
No.
any of that. And so they basically step back and say, okay, where are you and your wife at? Where do you want to go 5 or 10 years from now? We explain we're both W-2 and we want to go big into real estate. Here's some things. And then they go, okay, well, in order for what you guys want to accomplish, one of you needs to become a real estate professional. It's, okay, what is that? Oh, okay, well, 750 hours. It's more than your W-2. And then you can write off the depreciation of those assets against W-2 income. And so that was the strategy. So my wife had been a paralegal here in Austin, Texas, part-time. She quit that. She focused on multifamily. She focused on a short-term rental that we had built in the back of our property here in
Oh,
Austin. She
nice.
self-managed it. So she got all her hours in that way. And
Yes.
then we were able for her to qualify, which meant both of us as a real
Correct.
estate professional in 2020. Then we were able to apply all the depreciation losses against, our income, the W-2, and then we got a big refund from the IRS. Same thing's happening for 2021.
That's awesome. So again, I'm going to go back. The first thing you mentioned that we can invest in a syndication, right? As a high wage W-2 earner, and a lot of my listeners are both spouses work, right? you can take bonus depreciation to get cost segregation study done, and you can apply it to your long-term capital gains. Can you explain that?
Yeah, and so basically, the way the tax code works is in the United States, they're encouraging private citizens like us to provide housing for others, so the government doesn't have to
Correct.
build all this housing. Well, in return, that you get tax benefits. And so one example of a tax benefit is depreciation. Normally, it's straight line depreciation, commercial property, and maybe 27 and a half years. But then in the 2017 Tax and Jobs Cut Act, they changed it to allow for used property like existing apartments to be able to depreciate that. You hire an engineering company to do a cost segregation study. They basically segregates the component. Land doesn't count. You can't depreciate land. So all the improvements are 5, 15, 27 and a half years. And the way that the tax code works is from 2017 to 2022, for all the 5 and 15 year that they segregate, you can pull those assets forward and depreciate that in year one. And they call that 100% bonus depreciation.
Correct.
Then it goes
Accelerated.
to 80% next year, et cetera. It goes on, it phases out over time. But then if one of the two of you, or if you are single and you are a real estate professional, then you can take those and offset it against active. But if you're not, then you can have a capital gain, or you can have, if you don't have any capital gain, let's just say you invested 50K in a deal and it generated the negative 50K, and you're a W-2, no one's a real estate professional, right? Your spouse, your significant other. Well, then you can carry over passive losses
Yes.
like that forever, and it's an unlimited amount. And then maybe the next year you go full cycle, you have a 25K long-term capital gain. You can use that negative 50K that you carried over to offset that 25, so you don't have to pay long-term capital gains of 20% on that 25,000. That's an example. When I first read that, I thought if I put in 100 and I got a negative 100K on a K1, that would offset our W2.
Right.
It's like, no, it doesn't do that.
No. And that's what I try to explain to all my investors and friends, that you got to be careful. It's only goes as, there are two separate buckets: active or earned income, and there is passive income. So the
Yeah,
passive loss, this would be a passive loss from depreciation, goes into your passive income bucket, the passive bucket, and the active income goes, or you got to have active loss where you participate actively like an REP, real estate professional.
yeah,
But even not using the REP status, I still like the strategy, because that's what I've been doing.
yeah,
Because I go once a year, I go full cycle on one of
yeah,
those properties, because I've been investing since 2015. So,
yeah,
and I've been using this strategy because I prefer this over 1031, where my money gets tied and I got to buy a property which is more equal or more in value, right? So I have more money, which is getting tied. And then I also have only 180 days to identify, 30 days to close. So it becomes a pretty much a race against time, trying to
yeah,
find the right deal. So I have been doing this where every year I invest in a mobile home park, senior housing, or even Bitcoin mining, which gives me close to 100% depreciation. And then same year, I also try to sell one and take that and invest in the this particular deal. So this is great, and that's what I was telling a lot of my investors, that as if you both want to be W2, a lot of these people live in Bay Area, they make together 400K, 500K, they don't want to leave their jobs.
yeah,
And I understand, a lot of people, they don't want to take risk or chance either, right?
yeah,
So and they think it's not for them, they prefer someone else to do the investing. So for them, the going it this way, or even investing in every year in a couple of those, and one of those will go full cycle, right?
yeah,
One apartment will be sold next year, year after,
yeah,
and you can take the advantage of that depreciation
yeah,
loss. As you
exactly.
said, you can carry forward. No,
Yeah,
this is great. I,
yeah,
I
yeah. And
think
that way,
tax
the
is,
people can look at like what you did. It took a while maybe to go full cycle on that first one. But once you do that first one, you have the stage of other ones.
yes,
Then you can really benefit as a W-2 wage earner. You've got these carry passive losses that can then offset that year's capital, long-term capital gain on an asset that went full cycle, that was sold. And that's when it becomes very beneficial. The first couple of years, you're just accumulating, these
correct.
passive losses, and then you get to realize and take advantage of them later.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's talk about, some of the lessons you have learned while investing in
Yeah.
real estate.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, like back to the duplex thing. uh, we realized that having, one door, two doors, the vacancy can really wipe out profit for that year. And then the other thing, I learned from like Rod Khleif is, when he lost $50 million in 2008, is because he had 2,000 homes spread all over Central
Yes.
Florida, and they had different systems, different components. So he had different
Yeah.
repair and maintenance. They'd have to go look at that. They'd have to go get what that
Right.
part is. They'd go to Home Depot, come back, because that just killed them. So now we're
Yeah.
talking about 200 units under one roof with the same components. You've got the on-site, repair and maintenance. And so that is much more efficient to do that kind of management of a property, and providing that type of community and housing. And so that's why the other thing is, the commercial properties like apartments are based upon net operating income. And so, top line revenue minus expenses. Well, you can force appreciation by improving the
Yes.
unit, bringing those units to market rent on the refined units. You can do things to the outside, make it safer, improve the lighting, fix the asphalt, driveways and sidewalks. And you make a community out of it. You start adding amenities, and then people want to come and either stay or come and rent out these units. And so you can force appreciation more so when you're in a duplex, as an example. It's a comparable sales in the area. You can't really force appreciation on a single family asset or a 1 through 4, but from 5 doors up, you can have an influence on that. So that was one of the things that we liked about going into multifamily.
No, that's great. Let's talk about your deals. What has been your best real estate deal so far?
Yeah, I was a limited partner. I'm still am in a deal in San Antonio. It was one of the first deals that we funded, and it was from one of the mentoring groups. We got introduced to the different GP teams. We funded 5 deals. This one is about to go full cycle, and so it's going to be the first of 5. This was 36 months ago. We bought it. And it was purchased. The asset was purchased for like 4.9 million. Just sold for like 8.9 million. I put in 100K after tax, and it's going to come back at 220K. So then
Nice.
120K will be long-term capital gains. But because
2.2x.
my wife is a real estate professional, it can offset, the short-term, W-2 income.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So what has been your worst deal so far?
Yeah. I mean, definitely for now, it's been the duplex, just because of the vacancy, because of the water leak, because of some of the repairs. But it was a start. I mean, I still look at that as a positive
Yes.
lesson, to get into the game, and then you just learn over time. Some people stay in that game. They get more duplexes, a triplex, a
Yeah.
quadplex. They do a house hack, and that's fine. And then other people say, "Man, I did that for 20 years. I accumulated 20 or 30 properties. I self-managed, and I realized that's just a lot of work." And
Hmm.
then they realize multifamily. So we just tried to be a quick study and learn. And for us, we just realized that wasn't going to get us to, kind of the after tax income we were looking for passively month after month. And so that's why we changed strategies within 12 months to do multifamily.
Oh, that is awesome. I think it makes sense. And the first deal, a lot of us tried to make it a blockbuster deal. At least you didn't lose money. My very first deal, I lost every penny I put in, right? And I still continued. I still bought another one after 6 months, third one after another 3 months, because I knew the power of real estate, right? So, but first deal, just try to get in as early as possible and learn as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then you will see the power of real estate, and it doesn't have to be single family or multifamily. It can be mobile home parks, senior housing, self storage. One of my friend is doing car wash and laundromats, right? Parking garages. So there is all kind of ways in real estate you can make money, right? Or
Yeah.
you can just be a hard money lender or private money lender, and sit on sidelines without worrying about any tenant.
Yeah.
So no, this is
Yeah.
great.
I've been a direct lender out of my self-directed IRA, and then I realized that was a lot of work, to basically be in the first lien position and fund the purchase of the
Yeah.
property and the rehab to a flipper that was part of a group that we were in. And I mean, it worked out fine. You got 2 points on the front end, 12% interest, but it was just a lot of work to go back and forth and do all the title and do,
Right.
it was just so then I moved that money into multifamily instead of doing the direct lending. So yeah, that was an interesting process.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's take a quick break. After the break, we'll go through the same questions I ask every guest. Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. Jeff shared his story about how he went from high-wage W-2 earner to multifamily investor. Jeff, are you ready for fire round?
You bet I am.
Let's go. Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after this pandemic is over?
Right, right. As you say, we're starting to come out of, COVID-19, here in 2022. One of the things we've seen over the last 2 years is that the high value add where we're rehabbing a lot of units requires material, say appliances from China,
Yeah,
and we've had shipping issues, and so
yeah,
we've had delays in getting packages of appliances.
yeah.
Just think if you're renovating 300 units,
Even
you're
lumber
buying like
cost,
so
right?
there's that, and then
Lumber.
there's a paint shortage. Who would have thought
Yeah,
there'd be a paint shortage, right?
yes,
So you got the material supply chain issues, which everybody knows
right.
about. Then the other issue is the crews. They
Yeah,
get sick
labor.
because of COVID, and so those two
And
things
they don't want to work because of
they
free
don't want to
money.
work. Yeah, exactly. And so then we were saying, okay, well, maybe a better strategy is to look for the highly stabilized yield play. Maybe they're
Yes.
above 90% occupied. Maybe 50% of the units has already been renovated. You're not, and you can spread out that renovation over time. So that was one of the things that we learned. And also the delinquency on Class C was higher than B, and higher than A. So the delinquency during COVID, we would probably look to more a higher percentage of Class B assets that didn't have as much, because a little bit more white collar remote
Yes.
workers versus the service workers, blue collar in a seat. So anyway, those are some of the things that we've learned over the last couple of years.
Oh, that's great. Favorite real estate or finance or any other related book?
Yeah, yeah. So everybody. I mean, I would recommend, especially the newbies, start with Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then we got a
Yes.
lot of value out of Cash Flow Quadrant, and then
Yes.
we read Tax Free Wealth from Tom
Yep.
Wheelwright.
Actually that's a great book. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
how
yeah.
I got introduced to Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when I started scaling the business a little bit, it's like who not how.
Mm.
It's Dan
Dan
Sullivan, Ben
Sullivan's.
Hardy. Yeah, so that's another one where I hired my first virtual assistant, in the Philippines remotely to help me do some real estate stuff. So doing those types of activity, it's similar to Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week that
Mm-hmm.
he did a long time ago, where
Yes.
you basically have other people doing these activities. And so like I'll record a video of what this repetitive task is, then I'll have
Mm.
the virtual assistant take that over from me. It's things like that.
Yes.
So who not how, once you want to start scaling, is another good read.
That those are some of the great recommendation, and you won't believe almost every guest has recommended Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah,
And last three guests have mentioned Cash Flow Quadrant and Who Not How.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So they're all really good.
Yeah. Any tool or website you recommend or you cannot live without?
Yeah. So I would say two things. One is, biggerpockets.com. And then if you upgrade to the pro edition, which isn't very expensive, you get to see the comments, go to the forums, you get more value out of it. So, people can start with Bigger Pockets for free. The second thing is basically just go to your favorite podcast tool. There's so much great information out there on podcasts. I didn't know what a podcast was 5 years ago. When I would go to the gym, I'd listen to music in
Yeah.
my headphones. And then I've probably listened to 3,000 podcasts since then. And you can do a variety. It doesn't have to be all real estate, right? It can be personal
Yes.
development. It can be whatever. You can
Yeah.
listen to ebooks. But I would say for me, having a the podcast and being able to listen to those as well as in the car. I mean, I know maybe we're not driving as much as we used to, but that's another where the downtime area. Instead of just listening to the news or music, now I'll pipe through a podcast.
No, that's a great advice. That's how I stumbled upon 2015, why I bought a single family out of state, because I was listening to Rich Dad Poor Dad in my car while I was driving.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like, okay, this is what I got to do. I got to sell when I have here in Bay Area and buy out of state.
yeah.
So no, I totally makes sense. Any advice for beginner investors?
I mean, I would say invest in yourself and self-education. So, the podcast, reading books. Like I have probably read a couple hundred books, in the last 5 years, and the prior 30 years, I probably read 2 books, right? So it's that whole thing about education, educating yourself, and then it's the paid mentorships, right? So it's going and joining groups of mastermind groups of being willing to pay, because then you really will be extracting the value out of those organizations. So I think the paid mentoring and being around those people, you can find deals, you can do deals with other partners, maybe people further along than you will want to have you partner with them. And so that's been a game changer for us, to get the scaling, and you get confidence, you get educated, and then you're able to go out and do these deals.
How do you give back?
Yeah, so in Austin, we have a local music society nonprofit called Black Fret. So we join that and we go to those events. And so they have a membership level that you contribute, and then they give scholarships out at the end of every year. They give out about $250,000, and they spread it among the different bands that you get to vote for. And then we give back to Baylor University because my wife's son and I went there, and so yeah, we contribute back to Baylor to help the students out.
That's awesome. How can my listeners reach out to you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just the McKee Capital Group. And so McKeeCapitalGroup.com. And then the other way is my email is jeff@McKeeCapitalGroup.com. So, but yeah, happy to engage. I want to help people out, have a conversation, and I can send a Calendly, and we can get on a schedule and talk through people's goals and where they'd like to go.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff, for your time.
Thank you, Alpesh. Appreciate it.
Much appreciated. Have a great weekend.
Thank you as well.